Oh, this is cool. Look at this.
Take a hike in the Oregon Badlands Wilderness.
It's like a younger branch twisting around an older one or something. Isn't that neat?
You won't see the same tree twice. That's a bonus for Jenna Goodman Campbell of the Oregon Natural Desert Association.
This really papery, peely bark. It's really deeply furrowed.
Characteristics of an ancient juniper tree.
One of the only things that can really thrive out here. They're incredibly tough species, and they've been around for millennia.
A native that's adapted to thrive on the high desert.
You really have to admire juniper trees. They are so resilient. And the things that make them really resilient and, allow them to live for thousands of years are also the things that can make them pretty problematic.
40 miles to the east.
It's a wicked problem, if you will.
The trees are a nuisance.
It's suggested maybe 4 to 5 trees per acre. So if you think about like a football field minus the end zones and sprinkle 4 to 5 juniper trees, that's what you'd see out here. We're obviously a lot more than 4 to 5 trees.
This is BLM land in the southeast corner of Crook County, an area with the problem that plagues rangeland across eastern Oregon. Too many juniper trees.
The crazy thing about it is it might seem like a desert, but the sagebrush steppe supports different life stages for up to 350 species.
It's a spot that hosts a special species, the grouse with a funky mating ritual.
There are a handful of leks in the area.
North America's largest, the greater sage grouse is a threatened species because of habitat loss.
It might not seem like much, but sage grouse can crawl up and hide down, hide underneath. The grasses are great for camouflage and hiding nests. And the forbs are needed for the chicks because the chicks can't handle the tannins in the sagebrush leaves.
Necessary plants the juniper are choking out.
By pulling them out at the time that we did, we freed these plant communities up to thrive.
Cutting, piling, and burning younger juniper trees to help the birds.
And trying to eradicate it where it shouldn't be can get overwhelming.
The BLM's Prineville district manages 1.65 million acres.
And we have to look at how we prioritize treatment areas.
Areas around a lek where the grouse mate are a top priority.
It just takes time. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of collaboration, but if you do it across the landscape and make it a landscape effort, it's just the benefits are tenfold.
And just with that cutting, things can get better.
There's a place for it.
At Levi's Sawmill in Lapine, owner Levi Luttrell is turning juniper into something useful.
Raised garden beds, retaining walls, any place where you want durability.
The wood has its benefits and its drawbacks.
I spend a lot of time log handling. In a typical day with pine, I might run 15 or 20 logs. With juniper, it might be 80 or 100. And we still, our volume of wood at the end of the day is about half of what we get out of the pine. So, your bang for your buck it's tough there.
Tough like the wood itself.
Juniper will actually outlast by far, by like twice as many years, cedar or redwood.
But this juniper didn't come from a priority area of conservation for sage grouse.
When you go out on the high desert and it's just juniper and sagebrush, that juniper is going to grow like a bush because it doesn't have competition. Those are not saw logs. We don't saw those.
These trees came from private timberland on the east slope of the Cascades, where they grow taller, competing against pine. Every now and then, a good log rolls his way.
Yeah, that was a great one. I might get one of those a day sometimes. It's always been a portion of what I do, and it's, through the years, the amount of juniper that I've milled has kind of done this, depending on log supply and market demand.
Most of the juniper cut and eradication projects won't live on as fencing or decorative tabletops.
Unfortunately, the reality is that it gets pushed into giant piles and burned.
The biggest challenge is it just burns a lot more intensely.
A problem tree that spreads like wildfire.
It's a real spotty fuel, meaning it throws a lot of firebrands, and in wind-driven fires it can throw spot fires out ahead of itself.
This is the end result of a juniper management project near Cloverdale. Thinning trees to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires and...
This is a good example of ecosystem restoration. These types of projects promote the native grasses to come in, which in turn enhances the habitat out here for mule deer and other big game.
Not all the work goes up in smoke. On this day,
The stuff greater than 6 inches that doesn't end up in the hand piles gets sold.
the contractor is also cutting for commercial firewood sales.
We're starting to make some gains.
Back on the range,
They protect themselves from fire because they create a space without fuel to then ignite them.
these thirsty trees find a way to survive.
It's about ready to bolt. Even though it's just a small tree, it could be 30 years old, just with a really good taproot and then a lateral root system that can capture all that rain.
Burning these piles is a solution to a problem caused by putting out wildfires.
That led to a change in how these ecosystems functioned with that absence of fire.
The BLM is hoping another human interaction will slow this green glacier that's moving across the landscape,
A lot going on here. Once you get down to that level and start looking.
giving other vegetation and the greater sage grouse a chance.
People want to label it as a weed. It is a native species here, but its characteristics and ability to adapt can be weed-like in terms of just being able to take over.
It looks like a long time ago somebody cut off one of the trunks of this tree.
Poaching was one reason groups like ONDA worked to protect these sentinels of the high desert. Efforts that culminated in Congress designating the Oregon Badlands a wilderness area 15 years ago.
People were coming in and cutting down 1,000-year-old trees to use for things like furniture.
What's a wonder in one place can be a weed in another.
It's an important species in the high desert.
They're just out competing those other functional groups, our perennial forbs, our perennial bunch grasses, and our shrubs.
The duality of the juniper tree. A tree to conserve, a tree to cut. Out on the sagebrush steppe, Steve Kaufman, Central Oregon Daily News.